On this session of the Purple Coffee Podcast, I speak to Nicole Welch about how important it is you understand the culture before entering a new country and a market. Hello and welcome to session 44 of the Purple Coffee Podcast, inspiring entrepreneurial stories from some of the world's most awesome and high-fivest. I am your host, Turndog, and on this occasion I speak to a good friend of mine, Nicole Welch, about her great mistake. And as you can imagine, it is in aid of the Successful Mistake, a little book that I'm writing, all about an entrepreneur's grandest faux pas and how they switcherooed it around in something amazing. And Nicole shares her great mistake and what she did from it, and it all centers around her time in Honduras when she was getting into some very cool things, not-for-profit type stuff. I will let you listen to the conversation to learn more. And it was great, but she came across a lot of mistakes. And it's one thing making a mistake in your home country where you know the culture and the ins and outs, and a totally different one where you're in a completely different climate. And it rocked Nicole's world, and it was difficult for her to transition, but it really does go to show, whatever kind of business you're in this modern world of the online sphere, we're all connected. You never know where your next venture will take you, but it's super important to understand the culture and the language barriers and all such things before you really get into bed with it. And it's no easy feat, and it's always going to be different depending on who you are, your circumstances, and the country and culture we're talking about. It's not just about business culture, people. It's not just about yours. It's not just about your clients. It's about the actual environment around you. And I took so much from Nicole's world. It was an absolute killer convo, and it's something that I continue to think about. Whenever I launch something new or I'm considering something, I ask myself, how is this going to be taken in different countries? I want to travel, I want to go across borders, but before doing so, I need to understand what these borders are all about. So it's a killer one. I'm going to get straight into it because you didn't come here to listen to me. You came here to listen to Nicole. Rock it out. So I'm going to do that. But before we do, I'm going to share my little bio so we can learn a little bit more about Nicole Welch. Oh yeah. Nicole Welch, a woman with more bubble in her than champagne. A true go-getter with a spring to her step. She'll wine you and dine you and leave your head spinning. She podcasts these days, but used to do do-goodery things in developing countries, as well as a mishmash of all sorts in between. She's like Florida's own version of Wonder Woman, with kids under one arm, a business under the other, and life clinging between her teeth as it's about to go out of fashion. If you don't leave invigorated and excited after a sweet convo like this one, I sense you may have stopped breathing some time ago. So wake up, look out. It isn't a plane and it isn't a bird. Oh no, it's Nicole, and she's here to rock it. So, rock it we shall. Enjoy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so kindly for joining me, and I'm delighted to have with me on the show today Nicole, who is part of the Rap with Nick podcast. She also teaches at a college, which is very exciting, so she's obviously got a bit of a smart noggin up here, all very cool. And Rap with Nick is all about real men only, a very cool podcast, an interesting take on things, and I'm going to pass it over to her in a second to explain more about that and what she does. But first of all, Nicole, thank you ever so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Can I just call you Turndog? Because I love the name.
Feel free. Call me Turndog. I've been called much worse today. Randomly in the street. Like,
it is Turndog Millionaire's birthday today, by the way. So how old are you? Like 22 or 30?
30.
Wow. You look 22. So
I do not feel 22, I can assure you. But I've decided that 30 is the new 18. So I'm going to kind of like, I don't know, somehow regenerate my cells. I believe that's a thing these days. It's not too sci-fi. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to have all the knowledge of now, but with the body of an 18-year-old.
There you go.
So this is how it's going down. But in the meantime, I'm going to be speaking to Nicole about her wonderful Great Mistake. And you regular watchers and listeners will know it's all for the Successful Mistake, a book about an entrepreneur's great faux pas and how they switcherooed it around. But before we get to that, I'm going to pass it over to you, Nicole, so you can let us know a little bit more about who you are and what it is, and yeah, where you are right now in the world.
Yes, where am I? I do have to ask myself that every day. But I am with two little children now. Teach at the college, like you said, sociology. I do a podcast called Real Time, Real Men Only. I only interview real men, Matthew, only real men.
I don't know if I
See, that's what most men say. They'll say, "Oh my God, I don't know if I could be on your podcast."
yeah.
But we could find out. If you get chosen or asked to be on there, then apparently someone thinks you're a real man. And then that has been a lot of fun. I do a lot of personal coaching for small businesses, startups, a lot of marketing stuff. I teach people how to do pitches and presentations, completely different than how I would say about 95% of businesses do. And then me and my husband also do a lot of real estate on the side. We do a lot. We do missionary, like humanitarian stuff. Right now, we're putting some kids through school sponsorship around the world. We got one kid in medical school right now, which is really crazy. It's literally like having another child. And so, what else? That's about it, is what I can think of right now. I do have a little ADHD, so just rein me back in whenever
I
you.
hate to do that. I'm just gonna let you like ramble, and if this takes us to like 2 o'clock in the
I
morning,
am known for rambling. Yes.
That's just the thing. If this podcast ends up 3 hours long, then you
Mine.
viewer, you're part of this now. You can't leave. It's fine. And I've got to say, I'm so excited to hear your story, because as soon as you replied to my email, one, you were so enthusiastic. It was so good to find someone who's enthusiastic and liked my video. Very few people.
Oh my God, I loved your
on the video in a good sense. But you were like, we could choose this story when I was, such and such, and in a gang, and then there's this story where I was over here, and I was just like, oh my God, is she making fun of me right now? Like,
No,
is this real life?
Unfortunately, I wasn't. That's the sad part.
And I was like reading it half asleep.
If you haven't checked out his video, you need to go to Turn Dog Millionaire and look at his video, because I think it was brilliant. I think it was so chic and smart. But yes, and I was like stressing out about this, thinking, oh my God, which failure am I going to tell them about? And because all of them did lead to success. They've led to where I'm at now, and I really believe, me and my husband we'll be married 17 years this month. Can you believe that? And I am not as old as everybody thinks I am. So I would like to probably talk about the gang members one, because it's a little more, we did have a drilling business where we had a ton of failures in there. But going to Honduras, Central America, I have to kind of say that, because some people have no clue where it is. We basically were just kind of naive idiots, and we were, me and my husband, he worked at a little company called Enron, which kind of folded at the time, and so he lost his job, and we met this little girl. All of her organs were on the other side of her body, and so she came down in front of ours as a judge in Orlando. I'm from Florida, by the way. Love the Sunshine State. You got to come. Matthew.
I've been to Florida. That's one place I have been. Disney.
Well, you got a place to crash, man, when you're here again. Nice. I'm from Orlando, so we'll show you the whole state. It's fun.
I was always a big fan of Ponderosa.
Ponderosa. Yes. That
was a good place to get breakfast.
It's a good place to get any meal. That's a good place, and I love to talk about food. So I thought, let me talk about Honduras, because it's probably a little more interesting, and we had a lot of failures, just a lot of things that was almost like mistake after mistake. And the first one was literally kind of naively at 22, 23, saying, hey, let's go help this family. She came over to the States, got several surgeries, and stayed for like 6 months. She was going to die. Like literally, she was blue, had no oxygen, and was going to die. And so we built, my husband's a very good handyman, so we helped build and bring her mom down. They have like 7 brothers and sisters, and so just her and her mom came for like 6 months. We fell in love with her, and so we go to bring her back for like a week, right? And I get sick, and 2 days out of it, and I'm walking around this country going, there is no way in Hades I could live here. I mean, there's just no way. And so we get on the plane, and my husband's like, oh my God, we are totally coming back here, and we are going to build houses. We met someone that was with USAID. We're going to do a feeding program. We are just going to, and I'm like, yeah, okay, honey, sure. Yeah. So 5 months later, we're down there, right before Christmas time. We go in 2001, after 9/11, we went, December 23rd. packed up everything, sold everything, and moved down there. Didn't speak a lick of Spanish. Didn't know the culture. Mistake number one. So I'm sitting there literally just in culture shock, for probably about a month. And then our second mistake was hanging out with missionaries, other missionaries there. And I kind of realized that real quickly. I was like, you know what? We're not going to learn the language, and we're really not going to really like be with the locals and really help them. So let's kind of just start hanging out with locals. So I kind of, we were living out of our bags and we found a place to stay. And I just started hanging out with the locals and I would ask the little kids. I'd be like, tell me what this means. What is this? What is this? ¿Qué es esto? That's what I would ask them. And they would just teach me Spanish. So that failure of going to another country, I always tell people, do not move to another country unless you know some of the language. Because you would say like 5 words in Spanish and then they would be like, oh, qué bueno. And they would just go off. And you were like, holy crap, I'm lost. You wouldn't know what they were saying. And so I learned it quickly. Because I am a nerd. And so I just immersed myself and learned it. And me and my husband knew all the building words. And then I knew all like the other relationship and personal, social, psychological words. I would start doing counseling with people and stuff. It was fun. So then we got a contract with USAID and we got a bunch of food delivered and we had we met some other people. It's all about who you know. That was the other thing. And in America, now with social media, it's still like you make these kind of pseudo connections online, but then when you meet them in person, that's another funny thing. You'll meet them in person, you'll be like, wow, they're not really the same as they were when we were emailing. So over there, it is totally who you know. I mean, it's literally, they have nothing and it is all based on relationships, the whole community. And being in America, everything's fast and we want independence and we don't know our neighbors and we want to know, can I get this done, today? And over there, I would think, oh, we're going to do this big contract and get this food. And they would tell us tomorrow, mañana, mañana. And we'd say, okay, well, we need to feed these kids. And so we just didn't understand the culture. Mañana means 2 weeks from now. Tomorrow means, it doesn't mean tomorrow. It means, several weeks away. So the big joke was if you have to learn patience, you will move to Honduras. And we learned patience. So that was another good success notch in our failures, was learning patience because we really learned it. And so we get the food in and we didn't know that the little children, beautiful children who are grabbing onto you every day that you walk there and, you get over your whole personal space issues because you're just basically going to be groped and touched everywhere because they just want to be around you. So they sent us huge 100-pound bags of black beans. And we knew when we got there, we thought, oh, great. Well, they won't eat black beans. They only eat red beans. So there was like this huge issue about that. And we had to come up with different ideas of how to mix them and put rice in them to get these kids to eat them. It was very interesting. I mean, I was actually kind of shocked. I was like, you guys are starving. They live on less than $1 a day in Honduras. One of the poorest countries in Central America, and they would not eat these beans because they were black instead of red. So that was another learning notch. And then we somehow got involved with some people we met to working with gang members. And they literally said, well, do you guys want to start an international teen challenge? And Teen Challenge is a huge program over in the States here. I don't know. Do you guys have Teen Challenge over there?
We have things along the same lines, I believe. The whole idea of kind of getting young people in, either education or work or just some kind of proactive activity.
Yeah. So Teen Challenge International, they do try to be in every country. Like I know with Central and South America, they're pretty well known and have some establishments there. And Teen Challenge has to build a business to support itself. So you do ask for, money in the beginning. And that was the other thing we learned in our failures was how to ask without, without being needy. It's kind of an art skill I've learned, So basically I would storytell and I would tell people these awesome stories of what was happening. And I wouldn't be like, oh, please feed, poor little Paco here. I would just tell them some amazing stories about a kid or, we dealt with a lot of kids on the streets that huff glue. I mean, and it really, really messes up these kids. It gives them brain damage. And so I would just start telling stories and I would say, hey, you guys want the opportunity to come and, help. And I would be very enthusiastic. So that was kind of the other, I think it's contagious. And people would really just step up and give and even come down. I remember speaking one time and um, someone got a ticket. I didn't even know him and his family, and they came down and like helped us. I mean, it was kind of crazy. So, but again, back to the failures. So we decided, yeah, we'll do this. And I think a lot of our failures was not researching enough and not really having enough knowledge up front. And so, but in a way, it turned into a success because we learned by failing. I mean, we literally made huge mistakes with these gang members. Teen Challenge over in Honduras is not like Teen Challenge in the States, where it's like addicts and people that are a couple people that are in the gangs. The gangs over here in the States are very, very mild compared to the two gangs that basically run the country. They're politically like at war with the government in Honduras. So you would hear stories of like member bodies being dismembered with political messages. They did kidnap the president's son and sent his ear to the president and said pay up, and the president did not. And so they did wind up killing his son. And what happened was the police made a rule and said, just kill any gang member you see. They were always tattooed. And so we somehow decided, yeah, we'll do this. So we actually started kidnapping the gang members who wanted to get out. They would call the local church, and we had started our own nonprofit organization. We didn't want to be involved in any religious. We're very non-judgmental, very non-denominational. So we just thought, let's just go down there very neutral. And it was probably the most smartest thing we did because we could help anybody, and we weren't told what to do by any organization. We were our own bosses. So we started Servant's Heart before we went down. And then we started kidnapping these gang members in the middle of the night with a van and taking them out to this finca, which is a farm, and basically teaching gang members that had killed people how to farm and how to make blocks. That was going to be our business. And so some of the biggest failures would be, again, we would have stories of like, these gang members just not really, either not trusting them and giving them the leadership that they already, they portrayed leadership in the gangs. So they actually, some of them really stepped up and were leaders in the program. And that was the other premise of the program. You had to literally, the people that went through the program had to become, they could have a choice, but they became leaders, and they, eventually run the program. Eventually, we as gringos would be out of there, which is what happened. Yeah, it was fun. Gringos means white people. So we're kidnapping them, and some of them are detoxing, and I'm like afraid for my life. I'm thinking, what are we doing? And I guess we learned a lot of mistakes with money. And I don't want to taint any people out there. I mean, I definitely would profess to be a Christian, but there was a lot of politics within the church, actually. So a lot of churches would want to support in the beginning, and we would take the money, but then we realized, being self-sufficient and kind of working your butt off in the beginning and not relying on the handouts, because then they would try to control, and we came into a lot of problems with like pastors or different denominations, and it was really crazy. And a lot of that did have to do with cultural stuff down there. Yeah. But for example, one pastor, he totally swooned us. I mean, we thought the guy hung the moon. He was a great storyteller. I mean, a great one. You can use your powers for evil. And apparently this guy did. And so we had like bought him a ticket. He was going to come to the States. We got his visa. He was going to speak and raise money. And then things kind of really fell apart. He had a whole other idea, and he was basically going to take Teen Challenge and turn it into his own personal program, and it was really crazy. So really surrounding yourself with people that like, and trust, but taking it a deeper level, that have your same vision and foundation in mind. And that's what we started to learn, because man, we had leaders that were threatening us. We had our truck macheted a few times, and I remember thinking a couple days, what are we doing here? But I'll tell you this, I felt so protected by our true leaders, the ones that we finally weeded out. It was a process. It was a learning process. We weeded out the ones that were not a good fit, like we use in business terms, a good fit for you, the clientele and the uh, the provider of whatever service or product. And so we realized you really have to know who you are and what your vision and foundation is for that program, which it was. And we literally wound up building all the buildings on that farm. We actually built an orphanage by hand now. They don't have mixers to mix cement. And I've mixed my personal, that was the other thing we learned as leaders to get involved. We didn't sit back and give orders and tell them what to do. We mixed concrete with them and worked with them, ate with them. So it was cool. It was cool to see, but I could literally go on and on about some of the funny, hysterical mistakes that we made. Some that, yeah, it would take a long time.
I
But there
mean,
was a lot of takeaways from it,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose the overarching sort of mistake within this just all fits around culture, and
It does.
I've interviewed a few people where we've talked about different countries' culture, and then also like company culture and how that can be such a big thing, both for
Yep.
your business and trying to find that, but also when working with other businesses. But we live in a very small world these days where even if you don't purposely want to go across borders, once you end up on the website, and whether you're selling yourself, through a service, or if you're selling products, or anything like that, at some point you're probably going to get emails from people different parts of the world. You're going to have opportunities where you can take your ideas to different corners of the globe, whether it's a book or whatever. And
Yes.
every time you go away from your little bubble, in your case, the American bubble, in my case it'd be the British one, maybe to a larger
Right.
extent a European one, especially when you're going to something so contrasting to like South America or Africa, or Middle East, or places like that. The cultures are so contradicting. It's just complete juxtaposition, and that is huge, because you might think you're doing absolutely nothing wrong, and you might be doing what you consider
Exactly.
best practice based on your knowledge from growing up in
Yep.
wherever it is, but it's just not going to align, because like you say, they've got a more easier going mentality where
Oh
tomorrow
yeah.
actually means 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and where the culture is more, we're going to kind of put hammer into nail here rather than talk about it. And
Right.
culture is such a huge thing that we have to consider, but I don't think enough people consider it these days.
Absolutely not. And I think and when we came back, we ran other businesses. We did, I talked to you earlier about a sinkhole business. We did drilling for, which was very successful. We made good money with it. But even there, the culture, what I learned in Honduras, and my husband, if he was here, would attest, changed us forever. Because what I learned was if you don't have that value and moral foundation of respecting another person's
Mm.
rights, thoughts, disagreeing. They could hate your guts. I mean, I had guys spit on me. I had them get in my face, threatening and I remember just really thinking, I mean, inside, you're like about to wet your pants. But I remember thinking, I got to look at what they've gone through and what they've walked through. And just the whole being a mental health therapist, which is also what I did for years working in psychiatric units. It's like when you learn where people are coming from and you can feel that empathy, I think your business will go way further and deeper than you'll ever imagine because you can connect and relate. A lot of people don't use the word relate, they use connection a lot. Oh, connection. I mean, I can connect with you, but can me and you relate to one another, even if we disagree? Like, even if we're like, screw you, Matthew, it's like, whatever, could we relate? Could I find a piece of your culture and honor it? And I think that lacks in business. I think it lacks in America. And I remember coming back completely changed. And even to this
Mm.
day, I will never be the same. Like it was such a powerful failing process to learn success and to be teachable. And I tell anybody, if you're not teachable in business, your business may be successful, it won't last.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think, let's just use an example here. You've got an entrepreneur who's based in, let's say, America, and they're going to be, importing from, say, China or somewhere
Yeah.
in Asia, to bring in product to sell in America. Well, the way they sell in America is going to be one thing, but then actually, working with, the Chinese system and with Chinese people and the way they do things, it's a completely different world. And you might not necessarily agree with their culture and their processes and how they do things, but like you say, respect and relating to it and putting yourself in their shoes, because you don't necessarily have to like it, but you have to kind of respect the fact that it's there and that they've worked hard to build their own culture, and that, your culture is just as strange to them. And if all you ever do is like, no, I'm right, this is the way we're doing things, the hell with you, then, you're just going to dig yourself a bigger and bigger hole. Whereas if you're open-minded and say, okay, we're going to check how this is going, we'll make it work, good things can happen.
And I'll be honest with you, we saw a ton. I mean, I knew missionaries down there that still had been down there for 10 years, couldn't speak the language still. Orphanages that sat empty. I mean, we saw a lot of crazy stuff from other people that had gone out to quote unquote help. And the one motto me and Gavin wound up saying, at the end, my husband, was, we're not here to give a handout. We're here to give a hand up. And so we actually did help other families start their own businesses. They would have little tiendas, stores in their house, and they would sell, food they cooked. We would buy, it's called a molina, and it's a tortilla maker. And they would get the corn, make the tortilla, and sell that. So we would invest. Again, it's always about investing. And I like to talk about the honor and respect and relating as a dance. So it's how I teach people how to pitch. It's a push-pull. So, I mean, that's how relationships are. I mean, I've been married for 17 years. You got to push and then you got to pull a little. So you got to give and you got to take and give and take. And it's a dance. And if you don't, if you're not in sync with that culture and how they dance, and you don't do your research, do the work. I mean, that's why I love James Altucher. Do the work first. Go over there. And that was our biggest failure, is that we didn't do the work. We didn't research. We didn't learn at least some of the language. We didn't understand. I mean, there were so many little things I did that was so rude or inappropriate. and of course I wouldn't have known. I learned but we didn't do any work before. We just sold everything and went.
I mean, I can imagine a lot of people at home are going, oh yeah, it's so obvious you need to respect culture and do these things. But how many people watching or listening right now would honestly, if they had to do business tomorrow with I don't know, somewhere in Congo, in Africa, that they would be able to just, know how to kind of react? Would they know the language? Would they know what terms to use and whatnot? How they do the processes? I mean, you can say you're going to go in prepared. You might, you might go on Wikipedia. You might do a little bit of research. Some people go into more research than others, but until you actually get out there and actually see how things are done, you can read about something. But actually doing it is totally a different thing. And it is that due diligence. And it's one thing, picking up a phone, reading some books, reading literature online. But going there and spending a week in that culture will teach you so much more than weeks and weeks and weeks and months of reading up and doing research in that sense.
It's so true. And again, we had so many successes. I mean, I remember leaving, when we did leave and go back, we were there 3.5 years. And we went back, and to see the program Teen Challenge, I mean, it did bring tears to my eyes, because I was like, wow, because and that's the other thing for entrepreneurs, when you are groundbreaking and you are, breaking up fallow ground and really setting a foundation, it's a lot of work. And that's the other thing. If you're not committed, I remember there were days where I was like, okay, my life's in danger. I'm 20 pounds underweight. I probably have parasites. I miss my family. Why am I doing this again? I remember looking at my husband one time, and it will definitely stretch your marriage. I remember thinking, I don't like you. Can you take me home now? I'm done here. And that's what I would encourage entrepreneurs, man. When that going gets tough, know your why, know your who, know why you're and who you are, because that will keep you going. That will keep you in that perseverance. And to be honest with you, leaving was the hardest thing we ever did. And we just felt in our heart that it was time to leave. And we're still very connected with those people, probably more so than we are here. And it's like, it was really harder coming back than going there. And I do say that to everyone who has been overseas, and even relating to people, unless they've lived overseas or something, I would find me relating a lot better. Like, oh, especially right afterwards, I was very It was very hard. So it was a huge learning curve, though. And you're right. It's all about experience.
I can imagine it was one of the things which I noticed when you were telling the story was, I mean, when you're dealing with things like that, there must be times when you actually are fearing for your life, and it must have helped you understand and appreciate what really matters in your world, because you
Yes.
go over there with an idea of, yeah, we want to change the world, we want to do this and want to do that, but once you're out there and, you know, the times are tough, and in a country like that, in that situation, the times are going to be really tough. Like the downtimes are going to be like,
Yes.
ouch. It's not
Ouch.
like, you know, oh my God, I've had email issues today.
Oh, my
I mean,
cell
that's
phone
like,
died.
exactly, there's first world problems, and then there's like third world, in fear of your life kind of
Yeah.
problems. But it must
Yeah.
have really helped you appreciate, like, this is what matters to me, this is what gets me up in the morning, this is what drives me. And now in your world, not only do you have this better understanding of, you know, how the world works and relating to different cultures and different languages and religions and everything like that, but you must
Yes.
understand what matters to you a great deal
Way,
more than before.
yes, way more than before. Absolutely. And it's a process. I always tell people, even in their business, it's always a journey and a process, but it unfolded so much there, and then when I came back and even doing the businesses and continuing with Servant's Heart, it's just unfolded. I mean, even in real estate, what me and my husband do now, just learning how to deal with tenants. I mean,
Mm.
I can totally talk with them and relate with them, and I never have an issue. Like people that do real estate and our landlords are like, "Oh, we hate landlording. We'll, sub it out. We can't stand it." My husband's an investor and a realtor, but we have a lot of our own personal stuff we do on the side. And I'm just and we did it when the real estate market crashed. I mean, that's exactly when we did it. So I mean, I guess you could look at it as being opportunistic, but we did it and we felt like that was the time to do it after we sold the drilling business. So just being able to relate and get, not, and that was the other thing. It's not controlling and getting you like that's what I would see the other missionaries do. They'd come in and they'd bulldoze and they'd be like, well, they I would hear that it was this us and them mentality. And I was like, wow, no, that's not it at all, man. We're all in this together. Like
Mm.
there's no, greater than and less than. And I mean, if you look at other worldview countries and views of America, they do feel like we think we're the best. and they would ask me, Nicole, why are Americans, why do they love chocolate and why are they so fat? And I'm like, I mean, I would just laugh at some of the stuff that they would say, but it was so cool because I learned the real. That's why I called my podcast Real Time, Real Men Only, because I want real time with people.
Yeah.
I want realness with people. I want to hear what real men are going through.
Mm.
And it was just so cool because I got to learn about gang members like on the most intimate level. And I felt so safe around. I know they would take a bullet for me any day. I
Wow.
mean, so it was cool, and just I took that in with my coaching and with what I do now and teaching. And, it's, I'm not a rocket scientist and I don't have, people skills can be learned. People say, oh, well, you're just born with that. You're naturally an extrovert. No, I learned this. I
Yeah.
learned, you know,
Well,
I
that's
learned that enthusiasm is contagious.
yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it sounds like the big sort of facet that you took from this learning curve of, you know, being in a situation where you were, you know, you were overwhelmed and you didn't understand the culture well enough. The thing you've taken out the most is just this ability to relate to people. And
Yeah.
that's not a business trait. That's not, you know, an entrepreneurial trait. That's not something that you know, that's, I mean, to an extent, we're all born with the ability to relate, but that is a very teachable thing. I mean, that's just a human trait. And if you are willing to take a step back and go, okay, I don't agree with you, but I still want to learn from you, and I want to try and
Yes.
understand you, and I want you to try
Yes.
and teach me. And it comes back to what you were saying, that idea of if you think you're a business owner who can't be taught anything,
You're
your
done.
country is going to be, I mean,
You
it's just going to
found.
go downhill because there's always
Yeah.
going to be that ability to learn. And if you think you're immune and on top of the world and, you know, unbreakable, then you've got another thing coming, because
Yeah.
there's always that opportunity to grow. And I love how now you're able to take a step back and go, well, I don't agree with this person. I might not like him all that much, but I want to learn from him. I want to relate to him. I want to understand him, because I know that if I do, good things can happen. But if I don't, there is absolutely no chance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true.
Great.
Preach it, man.
Preach it. Well, I suppose my to sort of end this, because I mean, what an amazing story. I mean, just the fact it's the first time, for instance, I've had anyone on the show who's talked about gang members. So that in its sense
Cool.
kind of put this
Novel.
on a pedestal. So that's pretty nice. But it's just an amazing journey because it started off, you went over there with good intentions. You wanted to do good things. It wasn't like you were trying to, make $1 million bucks on, poor people. You were trying to help them. But even with them good intentions, it doesn't mean that you're going to go over there and get it all right, because until you understand the culture and how it all works, it's going to be a really rocky road. So to the entrepreneur out there who maybe similar thing, they're starting a business and they want to form a collaboration in the same sense of someone like Tom's or Zappos, where they, collaborate with different causes in different countries. Or maybe they're wanting to do a non-profit. Or maybe they're just wanting to be a presence online and actually work with people in different cultures around the world. What would you say to them to help them expand their mind? Something actionable they could do today to kind of get them from outside of their crazy little bubble and to be more relatable and understand these different cultures.
Well, I have some weird things that I teach, but I teach a lot about getting out of your comfort zone. So I actually have people, take cold showers because that's something that you're consciously doing. And there's an actual TED Talk, I think it's a TED Talk, about the cold shower technique, and it makes you braver, and it makes you if you do it for 30 days, there's actual studies done that will get you out of your comfort zone. Then I ask people to ask for discounts. Like if they go to a store and they know that they probably aren't going to get one, to ask anyway, ask for a 10% discount. So Starbucks, I don't know how well Starbucks is over there, but Noah Cake talks about this. I don't know if you know. So he taught, that's where I stole that one from, the Starbucks. But also too, just I used to do MLMs, multi-level markets, all the time and make money, quick, fast money, because of my personality. I'd get out there and I would just talk to anyone. And so really I would encourage the entrepreneur to just step out of your comfort zone and make the effort. If it's to get the girl, if it's to, get the job, make the effort, do some work, do some research first on what it is you're wanting, and don't be attached to the outcome. That's really important, because in order to be teachable and flexible, and you're hanging on some outcome or you have some agenda under your sleeve, you're probably going to live a miserable life. So I think if you could get out of your comfort zone by doing certain techniques that are going to put you, even going to a networking event, even for me with my personality, it's still a little unnerving. If I don't know anyone, I'm like, oh, okay, I have to go and say hi to someone and start a conversation. And it's funny, in this digital age, that's a lot harder now for these young entrepreneurs than it was, 10 years ago.
My version of torture. I'm so bad when it comes to the icebreaker, and my love life.
Exactly, the icebreaker. Yes, and that's why those things that Noah Kagan talks about are icebreakers, like 10%, high five a stranger, take a selfie with someone that you don't know. Those are all icebreakers. So, and as a therapist, that's what we did for a living in group therapy. We did icebreakers. So, you try to get everyone. And humor is so valuable. I think people have lost their sense of humor. So, when you're attached to an outcome or you have an agenda and things don't go your way, people just become miserable and bitter. And I think when you can bring humor to someone's life and a smile, it's actually healthy. Like studies have been shown that humor is actually the best medicine for people that are sick. And so I just think that we miss that a lot in business. We try to, just get so serious and let's go in and bulldoze and get the deal and this and that. And it's like, man, let's don't take yourself so serious. You're not as cool as you think you are, like laugh a little bit.
Well, I love this twofold, because one, I like how you didn't come from it in a predictable way of like, do your due diligence, do your research, visit the country. That was, I suppose, the kind of thing which I expect a lot of people thought you would say. Well, one, I love how you're talking about human, because that is universal. If you can be a positive and happy and humorous individual, then it doesn't matter what language you're saying. If you can make someone smile and laugh, you are halfway there to getting them on board, because that is how powerful it is. And the second thing, getting out of the comfort zone, because whenever we talk about culture, and if it's something different to the culture, you are straight away out of your comfort zone, whether that's language, whether that's processes, whether that's, just how... Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
there's
all of a sudden you're in a country and you don't have warm showers, just the idea of getting out of your comfort zone, that is going to help you embrace and relate to different cultures practically overnight.
And I literally, my husband can attest to this. The first night we were there, I cried myself to sleep. I said, "What did we do?" I was in such culture shock.
Mm.
And I missed my family, and we had our little dog at the time. Now we have kids. Um, but they were taking our dog, or who was like a kid to us. And I remember boo-hooing. It was like I would hear military people say, the first night at boot camp, wherever they went in boot camp, they would hear soldiers crying because they're completely taken out of their world. They volunteered for this. I mean, back in the day, they would get drafted, and it's completely uncomfortable, and you're scared inside. You're thinking, but the things that we do that are dangerous and scary make us so much more braver and courageous.
And if that isn't a definition of just entrepreneurial life in general, I
Exactly.
don't know what is. Because as soon as you start your own business and work for yourself, you are out of your comfort zone. You're going to have times when you cry yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
But it's these moments that make you stronger. And I suppose in a way, just like it made you realize what truly matters to you, it's those weak moments that make us realize why we're working for ourselves, why we're building them big businesses. And it isn't necessarily going to be the end. It's quite
No,
often just the beginning.
never
So,
the end. Yeah.
excellent. Nicole, what a wonderful story. What a great insight and a fantastic journey. Thank you so much for sharing it with me and with us. I just know there's going to be people watching and listening to this who can take a great deal of heart from it, not just in the the obvious sense of it had them cultural meanings, but in a greater sense of just relating to people. That is something that doesn't matter whether you're within a culture, the same culture, or going across boundaries. Once you can teach yourself to relate to others, you're going to make your world a much
Oh,
simpler and
yeah.
happier place. I honestly believe that.
It's gold. It's gold.
Golden indeed. Well,
Thank you so much for having.
the pleasure is all mine. I am absolutely, mind blown right now. Fantastic. It's a shame it's like 20 past midnight and I'm going to be
No, you need to
falling
get
asleep
some
after this.
rest.
I know. It's crazy. I won't
It
be able to
is.
sleep now. My mind will be buzzing, but that's not a bad thing. And indeed, Mr. or Mrs. Viewer or listener, thank you for joining us. So for me and Nicole, a big cheers and peace.
Cheers.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on today's session of the Purple Coffee Podcast. And a big thanks to Nicole for sharing her grand mistake. And what a great one it is. Nicole's a difficult one to pin down. She podcasts these days and she coaches and she does all sorts of things, but she's done a great deal over the years. And I think she's taken so much from her time doing not-for-profit type things in places like Honduras. If you can come across issues and overcome them in places like that where you're completely thrown out of your comfort zone, then you can come back to your comfort zone and absolutely rock it. And that's exactly what she does these days. So I hope you've taken a lot from it. Of course, hers was about going away to doing a not-for-profit kind of venture, but really this wasn't about that. It was about you going out of your comfort zone and understanding the culture you're getting yourself into, whether that's actually moving countries or just performing in a different market or diversifying into a new industry. You always have to think, am I going to appeal to this new place? And if not, what can I do? How am I coming across? And this is something that is always on my mind. So thank you so much for joining. I hope you've taken a lot from it. I know that I have. And if you'd like to learn more about Nicole and everything she's doing, like I say, it's difficult to pinpoint who she is exactly, so I encourage you to check out her site. You can do so by visiting tdog.co/purplecoffee44. That's tdog.co/purplecoffee44. All the links to her world are on there, as well as the show notes and everything else that you need, including how to subscribe, rate and review this very podcast on iTunes and places like that. It would be great if you did so. If you can find a few minutes, please do. It would mean a lot. But until next time, I'll leave you to it. Have a most awesome day. Turn Dog is peacing you out. I cannot wait to chat and converse next time around. Goodbye.